Hi, you know who I am. I'm Father Jerry, the Rector of Holy Comforter, and this is.
Amy Johnson, the Senior Warden of Holy Comforter Episcopal Church.
How long have you been Senior Warden?
I've been Senior Warden, this is my second year.
Had you fulfilled this responsibility before at some point?
No, I've
No.
never been Senior Warden. I come from a long line of clergy, Episcopal clergy, but never, I don't think any Senior Wardens in the family tree.
Did you see the picture on Facebook last night of your dad in the middle of his episcopacy?
No.
Somebody posted a picture last night on Facebook. Amy's father
Cool.
is Bishop Laudet, who's now a member of our church. But it was a really nice picture of him in his youth. You have to go and find that.
I will find
I
it.
think it was Cynthia Jester.
Okay,
that
wonderful.
Put
Sure,
it up there.
sure.
Listen, we've been asked to just answer a few questions about our life here at Holy Comforter in the church since the advent of this pandemic. And the first two questions, Amy, I'm going to ask you are your overall responsibility of the church and how have things changed since the advent of COVID-19?
Okay. All right. Overall responsibilities, of course, first and foremost, as a parishioner in good standing, being present at liturgy, either online or physically, when that is possible yet once again. But as Senior Warden, responsibility to assist the clergy in any way asked or deemed appropriate. So that's sort of those two roles that I play. As far as how has it changed since this pandemic, we're doing a lot more by text, by phone, a lot more by video, like today. So much more sort of virtually, that sort of virtual communication, and less in person, which obviously we all miss, but we'll come back in due time.
Is it remotely? I know we know it's less emotionally satisfying, but doing video and FaceTime and Zoom, do you find that in your leadership role helpful?
Oh, absolutely. And certainly, and if we didn't have that, how could the leadership continue? So I'm so thankful for the technology that allows us to continue to maintain our connection with one another, to continue to have vestry meetings, finance committee meetings, all those kinds of things that we are doing virtually.
Yeah, great. Well, and my role here is to offer spiritual leadership and in some ways be the CEO of the plant. And that goes along quite smoothly until you throw in some monkey wrenches about not being able to worship anymore. And I have found since the advent of COVID-19 and all the CDC and state and White House regulations, leading worship to an empty congregation, to an empty church, is amazingly difficult because a part of my personality is to engage in the community. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that if you don't have a Bill Thompson right there in the pew to be able to sort of pick on Bill. But Bible studies have been more fun in some ways, preparing a 30-minute video, teaching, and then engaging people online, Zoom conferences. I have found a lot of fun. And I think in some ways people are more comfortable because they're in their own homes with their own cup of coffee and able to participate that way, which has been kind of cool. So,
very cool.
Where have you turned for ideas and guidance?
Well, certainly the national guidance that we have through the CDC, certainly the state guidance through the governor's office, but also through our very own Leon County Health Department, and the diocesan guidelines, which I know you're very familiar with, but obviously all of those, as well as the national church information that's being disseminated in some ways and shared out.
Have you had to learn any new skills?
Oh, well, certainly. Virtually, there's lots of things that facilitating virtual meetings, as well as participating in virtual meetings, and sort of that kind of etiquette as it relates to virtual meetings. So certainly lots of skill sets that are exercised there.
That I have found myself saying a couple of times in the last 8 weeks, if I'd retired when I'd originally planned, I wouldn't have to learn these new skills.
But we're so thankful that you did not, Father Jerry.
Although Mother Beth said to me today, I think you like online meetings because you can mute everyone. I don't think that's true, but it is kind of cool. So can I just ask you about your background, your professional background, and your personal skills that may have led to this and your ability to be able to change?
Certainly, although I don't know how any of us could be totally prepared for a global pandemic. Certainly in the work world that I live in, we have had pandemic plans in place for 10 or 15, 20 years. But living through that is a very different kind of activity than exercising a plan. So I think the skills that have been best exercised at this time is the creativity and the ability to explore new ways, to pivot services, to be able to continue to lead life either in church in this community or in work, to be able to continue to provide services, and just pivoting all of those so that they remain relevant and reachable by so many folks. And so I think that's probably not so much a skill set, it's sort of an energy to not say we can't, but to say we can, but in a different manner.
So in your role for the state government, have you taken some of the flexibility that you've needed there and been able to bring it here? Because I think sometimes we can be really linear, and I think what this has demanded of us is to really think 30,000-foot view and be flexible.
And creative. Yes, absolutely.
So have you heard any, as senior warden, have you had any feedback from the community? Like what's the feedback you've received?
I certainly have gotten feedback from individuals as well as sort of in general feeling. And the feedback obviously is mostly centered around continuing community and that sort of initial, I'm going to say, fear that we all went through as this initially was happening, and what would it mean? How could we continue? And we have managed to answer and respond to all those fears. Again, not in a physical way, which is what we want and we will have again at some point, but in a way that maintains community the best we can, given the technology tools we have and the energy and creativity that we have here exercised in so many parishioners and in your leadership and with Archdeacon Jeannie and Mother Beth. I mean, we are exercising every single option we have to maintain.
I'm glad to hear that. My experience is that no one has backed down. The community is full of very gifted people, but it's been new skill sets, new technology for many, but they've all been willing to try to learn. And nobody has sort of thrown up their hands and said, I'm not going to do that. And that has really impressed me. And I think that bodes us well moving forward, because we've been stretched, and when we're stretched, we're probably at the most growing edge. Well, any last words for the congregation before we pull this to a close?
Sure. It's one of the things that I've certainly been wondering a lot about and hoping for and knowing we'll achieve together is how to maintain the very best of these things that we've learned, this connectivity we've had, this connectedness, better word, that we've had over this time, and how that will be maintained in sort of new and different ways. Yes, we're going to go back to that sort of physical being able to be together, but some of the new opportunities we've had to broaden some of our skill sets as well as some of our connectedness, I think we will need to maintain and want to maintain.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You can't stretch an elastic and never have it go back to the exact same size. And I think you're right. I think we're going to find that many of the things that we've been forced to do, we're now going to want to continue to do to service our base. Amy, thank you.
Yes,
thank you for listening, and be blessed. You're going to hear from us again soon.